In many cases, hair loss precedes the diagnosis of almost every single medical condition that we know. And so we can actually start addressing those internal problems by focusing on why is the person losing hair and what are the areas where they're losing their hair.
Before we jump in, can you please tell me what a trichologist is?
But of course.
Okay.
So the majority of people, when they have a hair loss issue or a skin issue, they go to a dermatologist. Now, dermatologists are specialists in skin, hair, and nails. And they do study hair follicle health, but it's actually a very small component of what they learn in medical school. So about 100 years ago, because hair loss issues have always existed, trichology became a more important component for some dermatologists. So there are dermatologists who actually specialize in hair loss issues. A trichologist is somebody who focuses on understanding and optimizing the health of the hair follicle specifically. Why? Because every single hair follicle is an actual individual organ. It is the smallest organ in the body. It has its own connection to blood flow, to the nervous system, to the lymphatic system. And for that reason, when somebody already has a hair loss issue going on, it means that there is something else going on in the body. So it is the best indicator for health. That's actually how I approach it. In many cases, hair loss precedes the diagnosis of almost every single medical condition that we know. And so we can actually start addressing those internal problems by focusing on why is the person losing hair and what are the areas where they're losing their hair.
So that's a powerful statement. Hair loss preceding every medical condition.
By a few years.
By a few years. Okay, so in what way is us losing our hair an indicator of that?
So let's start with the fact that hair, because it is an indicator, it requires a lot of nutritional support, okay? So when people start living their lives, and especially now with the toxic environment that we live in, we're going to be getting exposed to a lot of these chemicals and toxins, not only through the gut and through the food that we consume, but also through the products that we put on ourselves. And so many times what happens when somebody's not making the right choice of the food or the lifestyle, they're gonna start receiving less of the nutrients, both macro and micro, that are required for hair to grow really healthy. So if you go back to your years in medical school, if you remember the diagnosis for failure to thrive in children, that's actually how I see hair loss. It is a failure to thrive. In most cases, what we find is with people wanting to lose weight or not gain weight, they start reducing the amount of food that they consume first. And the first thing that's going to happen when they're trying to achieve a specific physique is that the hair is not going to be receiving the amino acids that are required. And also with this movement into veganism and vegetarianism for so many reasons, we're decreasing a lot of the micronutrients that the hair follicle actually requires to really grow very healthy. So that would be the first step, right? We all eat every single day. When you start reducing food, you're going to start seeing that the density of the hair and the amount of hair that each follicle produces can be less. And that then compounds the fact that we're using a lot of products that were really not designed for human use. When you look at the ingredients in soaps and shampoos, it's all marketing when you really look at it. That's the reason why normally you have to buy a shampoo and a conditioner. With the shampoo, we're removing a lot of the natural oils that the hair follicle has to produce, which of course has to come from the food that you are already consuming. And then you have to put it back by putting a conditioner. And so when we compound that, right, the hair follicle, then there's a separation in the distance between the hair. The scalp becomes then impervious to the elements. If you use hot water on top of the chemicals that we put on our head, the relaxers and all of these other treatments, what happens is that the microbiome starts to respond. And so when we talk about the skin and the scalp microbiome, there is one specific type of fungi called Malassezia, and it's on all of us. It really is the driving force behind aggressive forms of hair loss. So what happens with Malassezia when you have all this space in between, when the hair is actually not there to protect against UV radiation and other stimuli, Malassezia starts to thrive on the dead skin, on the scalp, and then you start having other problems. That's when flakiness and excess oiliness starts. And the problem is that some of these microbes, which are natural to us and start to overgrow, start to feed out of the nutrients that the sebaceous gland starts to produce. And so then you start having this never-ending cycle. And that's the reason why sometimes backing out from the products that you use can actually help a lot. I am in favor of using natural oils, but unfortunately some of them can make Malassezia thrive because it's a lipophilic type of fungi. So it loves oils in general.
Right.
It wants to feed on your oils, the ones that are produced by the sebaceous gland, and then the oils that you put on your scalp can actually accentuate the problem.
Let's talk about something I do for my health literally every day. I started taking athletic greens because I wanted more energy. And now it's been about a year and I love it. Athletic greens does not taste like it's super healthy. You know, that raw, earthy, kind of barky taste? No, athletic greens is mild, tropical, tastes good. It's got a vanilla pineapple-y taste and I look forward to it every morning. So what is it? With one delicious scoop of athletic greens, you're gonna get 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. Here's one of my favorite parts. It's less than a gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything, and it tastes good. Now, for me, it helps support overall sleep quality and recovery, and during the day, mental clarity and alertness. AG1's a small micro habit. It's got big time benefits. It's one thing you could do every single day that builds on itself for your health. So, you know, I only partner with brands I truly believe in. Athletic Greens is one of them. They're a great company focused on sustainability. For one, they are a climate neutral certified company. In 2020, they purchased carbon credits and supported old growth rainforests. Additionally, for every purchase of AG1, they donate to organizations that help get nutritious food to children, including No Kid Hungry right here in the United States. And in 2020, AG donated over 1.2 million meals to kids. So to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is visit athleticgreens.com/heal-thyself. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/heal-thyself to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Hey everyone, I want to talk about Birch Living. This is a partner that I've been working with for quite some time now. Sleep is a tenet for overall health, and it's so important to me, and I'm excited to talk about Birch on the show as always. It's a premium mattress in a box company, and it makes mattresses and sleep products that are stylish, comfortable, environmentally conscious. They're organic, non-toxic mattresses, and they're made right here in the United States. Now, for me, it was important to choose a mattress that is made with organic and natural materials, and this is Birch. When it comes to your bed, if it's a poor quality bed, it can have chemicals that are off-gassing throughout the life of the bed that you're being exposed to that can be harmful to your health. Now, Birch mattress is Green Guard Gold certified. This is essential. That's making sure that it's tested for over 3,000 different chemicals that can be on the materials of your bed that you'd be exposed to. Now, I had my Birch for about 2 years. I love it. What I love most, it's breathable. First and foremost, I'm not sweating. It's cooling through the night. I love how supportive it is. It relieves pressure points like I'm sleeping on a cloud. It's allergen and mildew resistant, and it's made of raw materials sourced straight from nature. So with your mattress, you get a 100-night sleep trial along with a 25-year warranty. The best part of all this is Birch delivers your mattress right to your door, free within the United States. Comes rolled up in a box, super easy to set up yourself. I love my Birch mattress. I think you will too. If you're looking for a new bed, check out Birch. You can click the link below or go to birchliving.com/heal-thyself and get 20% off of your mattress plus 2 free pillows. And if you're looking for a mattress for your little ones, which is so essential, especially early on, go get a Birch Kids mattress from the kids line. Interesting, because I know a lot of people who were complaining about dermatitis in their hair, itchy scalp, dandruff. You're all saying is caused by that imbalance in the growth of that fungus.
Yes.
Okay, now, when it comes to shampoos and conditioners, should we be shampooing our hair every single day then?
I am of the camp that says absolutely not. In fact, about 6 years ago, there was a little bit of movement into no showering, no shampooing. In fact, driven by many medical doctors, and I am part of that camp. So If the scalp is in balance, it can actually go up to a week, 2 weeks, or even a month without being shampooed. What happens again when you're using all of these chemicals is that you're removing what the body already is there. You're damaging the barrier and allowing other things to thrive, which is not really supposed to happen. And then you're going to start having other populations of bacteria that are normally not found at those levels thriving in that area. And so what happens is that we understand now that in the civilized world, or the first world, where a lot of these chemicals have been introduced, we have one specific type of bacteria. It's called Nitrosomonas eutropha, which has become extinct from the skin and the scalp. It was actually available commercially until not that long ago. And you could actually put it on the scalp and maintain the scalp without absolutely any problems for a long time. We don't have the product available anymore, but there's other modalities that can be used to keep the scalp in balance. It is recommended sometimes, if there is already a problem, that you switch to, for example, clay-based products. Why? Because Nitrosomonas eutropha is a bacteria that thrives in every single environment, including the soil, right? So because we have been disconnected from nature, right? Children now are not in touch with animals, with the soil, with farming, with their own food. What happens is that we don't really have this replenishment of this natural bacteria that occurs in these environments. And so we consider Nitrosomonas eutropha a peacemaker bacteria. It is found, in fact, in many populations around the world that don't use any soaps. But these populations tend to use actual mud to put on their skin. So a much better way to take care of the scalp is to actually use clay-based products. You can use it once a week as a pre-treatment. You leave it for 5-10 minutes on the scalp, and then you rinse it off. It's basically the same type of clay that can be used on the skin when it's very oily or when there's acne. So I find that to be a much more productive way to maintain the balance. And then, of course, people that have hair, because this is something that is not alive, right? It's a fiber. What we want to do is actually treat the ends without having to actually wash it off every single time. Mm-hmm. So you can do the clay treatment on the scalp. You can put any of the oils that we know that are beneficial for hair, jojoba, grapeseed, directly on the tip of the ends. And then when you rinse off with water, you're going to notice that the hair is actually going to look and behave much more naturally.
It's powerful to think about because so many of us have grown up, not even thinking twice about the importance of what hygiene means. You got to shower. You got to use soap. Even better, antibacterial soap we get marketed, right? We got to use shampoo and conditioner.
Correct.
And there was a whole movement, you do it every day. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, maybe every other day is good. And now you hear people saying maybe shampoo once a week. So there's so many different camps, as you're saying. But I want to go back to this clay cleaner, this clay-based shampoo. What you're saying is this particular species of bacteria has become extinct in America here.
In many of the Western countries, yes.
Okay. And this bacteria is the peacemaker in the biome. It is the thing that really helps keep balance.
It is one of the things that helps.
In our scalp.
Absolutely.
And if it's not there, the fungus, Malassezia, is having a party.
That's exactly right.
It's like the gatekeeper in many ways, right? Yes. So, and we're getting this mostly from clay, or the clay is mimicking the effect?
We are supposed to be born with it. This is the reason why we think that it's becoming extinct from the Western civilization. So, if you are born with it, of course, because it's growing on the skin and potentially other parts of your parents, every time that you come in touch with other person's skin, you're going to be in contact with it. So because we're using the detergents, the Nitrosomonas is extremely sensitive to soap. And in fact, when we were trying to replenish it in a spray, we will find that, yes, you needed to actually interrupt the use of soaps for at least 10 to 15 days to allow it to start to become reestablished and to start growing. It's a very slow growing bacteria. So that's partially the reason why in children, for example, now with the rates of eczema that are so high, what we find is that using a lot of these detergents on the children, right? Like children, for example, even if they're playing outside, a really healthy child can be potentially bathed 3 times a week at the most without really having to use the soap on the rest of the skin. So it might not be that it's completely extinct, it's just it's at very reduced levels. And because we are constantly washing it off and damaging it, then you have the resurgence of this kind of skin issues. From the skin microbiome research, actually something very interesting has happened. And it's partially the reason why we believe it's been so difficult to introduce a biome-friendly products. So for a lot of the clinical trials for skin microbiome products, the companies will ask their subjects to interrupt every single product that they're using for at least 3 weeks minimum. And what they find is that many of the skin conditions that these people suffer from go away.
Wow.
Between 50 to 70% of people actually see an improvement by removing some of these products. And so you can imagine if you're doing a clinical trial, right, to see exactly what is the effect of a specific chemical or an oil extract or a postbiotic of a fermented product, and 50 to 70% of your subjects already have this amazing placebo effect, then do we really need to introduce these other products? So again, that's the reason why my aim is to try to teach people that less is more.
Yeah, instead of going for the new marketed Better Biome
Exactly.
skin or Better Biome lotion or Better Biome shampoo or
Correct.
conditioner. It's
It may,
more
not,
about,
it may not be necessary.
it may not be necessary because you're saying, and that's like really fascinating to think if these people just, and let me be clear, you were saying they remove soap, they remove shampoo and conditioner and lotions and things like that?
Correct.
And so they just went all natural.
Well, it's very hard for people to do that, but if they're already having so many skin issues, right? So we're talking about clinical trials for eczema, for acne, for psoriasis. They have already tried every single other thing that is available. Nothing is working. They're going to be part of a clinical trial. They're going to try their best to basically be able to be included. But this is, again, some of the things that have been found in the process is still not published, which is the reason why people won't really adhere to this less grooming, stop being so much of an over groomer. And it's difficult because you touched on hygiene, right? So there are specific parts of the body that, yes, they could be cleansed every single day. These are the areas that normally, they're going to harbor other kinds of bacteria. They may also have follicles that may be a little bit larger. So we recommend that, yes, if you're going to clean any parts of the body, you do those only behind the ears, the armpits, the groin, this area, and then your feet, of course. But the rest of the skin really doesn't need to come in contact with soaps. In fact, we see a lot of women that have facial issues that are coming from the hair products that they're using, or people that have back acne or chest acne when they remove the soap and the shampoo, because of course you're using water to remove them. You have a lot of the chemicals actually coming in contact with these areas, and the problem tends to actually improve right away.
So I suffered with psoriasis for many years.
Really?
And I remember there was a shampoo years ago that I would wash with, and it wasn't psoriasis shampoo, it was just like one of the quote unquote natural shampoos. Okay. And every time it went down my leg, I would start itching.
There you go.
That's exactly my calves would itch, my knees would itch. I remember I would always itch in the shower.
Correct. And itch is actually one of the major problems that a lot of people have, especially children. We know now that those children that have eczema and can sleep very well actually won't be able to perform that well in school. And so recently, the company that works with nitrosomonas eutropha and is doing the clinical trials with it found that the heat inactivated form of the bacteria actually helps for itch. So they're now basically trying to enter the 3rd stage of clinical trial for that. If we can actually put something on the skin to minimize itch for any reason, that's actually going to improve your mental clarity, right? You don't have to be thinking about it. You don't have to be reaching for something, be worrying about it all the time. Then you can place your focus on something else other than managing the itch sensation.
Right. So would you say as a barometer 2 to 3 weeks to help reestablish our natural biome on our skin?
Well, some people need to start a little bit slow. So the first thing is to actually reduce the number of products. And of course, the first thing that you already should have done is to have removed most products that have phthalates, right? Parabens, which we know are very damaging to the skin microbiome. It can have some purposes, of course, for the maintenance of a product in a bottle, but for your skin, it's not going to be so healthy. So once you're using those products, the whole point is to first use a lot less, use it in the areas that are just necessary. A lot of people benefit from just putting a little bit of water, which is the other thing that I found in my practice, that a lot of my clients, especially male clients, who were experiencing skin and scalp issues and extreme forms of hair loss, the reason why it was happening is because they started going to the gym twice a day. So they would shower in the morning with a soap, go to the gym, and of course, a lot of people don't like that sensation of the sweat. Then they will come back and rinse again with soap and shampoo. And then they will have to start the process again. So feeling more comfortable when you are physically active, many times what I recommend for people is just when you come back from the gym, just simply rinse off. That is the amazing thing about Nitrosomonas. It actually thrives on the ammonia that comes off of the skin. That is the whole purpose of it. It breaks down ammonia into nitrite and nitrate. And then your skin can actually produce nitric oxide. So if you're going to be sweating, you don't have to use a soap. That may actually help the natural nitrosomona that is on you, maybe what you're encountering in nature, to actually start thriving again in the areas where it's needed.
To think about that, because a lot of us come back. I mean, just this morning, what did I do? Oh, I did a sauna.
Yeah.
And then, I ate a little food, did some work, and then I'm like, okay, I got to go to the gym now. But I already showered after the sauna because I was dripping in sweat.
Of course, which is the right moment to do it.
Right, it was right. But then I go to the gym, and then I was like, oh, okay, I won't really sweat. And then I started sweating at the gym like crazy. So then I came back. It took 2 showers in
already?
In 3 hours.
No wonder, Doc.
3-4 hours, you know what I mean? So,
exactly.
So what is the proper, healthy amount of showers that we should be taking per week? I'm asking you the real good questions here.
Yes, I know. At first, if you do 2 to 3 times a day, go for once, only at the end of the day. What people don't realize is that when they lay down, of course, I favor actually sleeping in the nude. Why? Because your skin is going to be in contact with fabrics and you have a lot of exfoliation happening like that. We know that the microbiome tends to be more active at night, as it happens with the circadian rhythm and many other processes in the body. And so when you wake up in the morning, you don't have to shower again. You can clean the bits as necessary. That will be the first one, right? You just reduce the frequency. The other one is you have to reduce the temperature of the water. That really is the most damaging. If you do want to jump in the shower, the last thing that you want to do is actually put your face and your scalp under really scalding water. Most people don't realize how hot it is. And so once you reduce the amount of water, and you can actually do this once a day kind of showering with maybe cleaning the other parts in the sink, like we used to do, hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, then you can start feeling more comfortable. For example, people who live in areas where there's winter, right? So I'm in Florida. We don't really have a winter. But in the winter months, you can actually reduce the shower frequency to 3 times a week. That's actually what a lot of dermatologists recommend. And you're going to need many less moisturizers and other products and emollients to keep your skin in the barrier where it should be.
Yeah.
So, but again, I belong to a very small group of people. The interesting thing is that, like you were talking about with the hygiene, a lot of people are concerned that they're going to smell. They're afraid of smelling like humans. We actually have like this really nice sweet smell to us when we don't overwash. And if you're actually using some of the natural oils that we know that are healthy for the skin, and you're replenishing and helping the barrier that way, you're going to notice that you're not going to smell. And so that's the first fear that most people actually have.
Yeah. We think about it. I mean, the social stigma.
The social stigma.
That's the big thing. And people, I know.
But we don't live in the Middle Ages anymore, right?
Right, exactly.
Who's riding horses, you know what I mean? No, and being with their cattle every single day and, working with pigs. We don't.
Exactly.
So we really don't need to be that overly aggressive with the washing that we do.
Let me go back. Is taking a hot shower and putting hot water on the face and the scalp damaging?
Absolutely. So let's think about the process, right? So you have hot water that is coming through pipes. Well, that water, if it's not filtered, it's going to be coming with some chemicals with chlorine, microplastics, and then the shower head is actually the perfect environment for some bacteria that may actually be in your bathroom, right? So as a microbiologist, we're always thinking of how do people come in contact with microbes that were actually in their intestine, right? So you have your shower in the same place where you have your toilet. So you take your bowel movement, maybe you don't close the lid, and a lot of these bacteria actually become aerosolized and can attach to the shower head. So what I will recommend is if you are going to shower, first look at the shower head, decontaminate it every so often. You can also put a filter directly in line with the shower head to actually minimize some of these chemicals. But in principle, the skin is a very delicate surface, so it doesn't need to have this constant pressure that happens when you have water coming out directly. You can also soften the blow if you want to still do it. You can soften the blow of the pressure of the water with your hand, or use a shower head that gives you more of a misting effect. So it's just, I want people to become aware of every single one of these things that can actually be affecting them. And every time that I do, people realize, oh, you're right. I didn't realize exactly how it is that I shower. The other recommendation, don't shower face front. Actually back up into the shower. If you want to use hot water, use it on your shoulders, maybe your back. And then at the end of the shower, lower the temperature and then finish with a cool rinse, basically.
And so what is the hot water specifically doing to our scalp when because I know that a lot of people love taking the steaming hot showers right to the full, and the steam is coming up and you walk in, you can't even see your hand in front of you. You don't have people, that's not me. but what is the heat damaging the scalp microbiome?
Absolutely.
Even without the chemicals, then we're taking that out, taking the shampoo chemicals, the pipe chemicals, the steam is in itself damaging.
That is correct. Remember that the pH of water it's 7, so it's supposed to be neutral, but the skin and the scalp favor and actually behave much more normally at a much lower pH. That is the reason why when you use water, for example, when you go into the sauna, try it next time. If you rub your skin just by being in the sauna, you're going to notice that there's a layer of skin that comes off. That's just with a little bit of the steam. So if you're having actually the temperature and the pressure directly on the skin, you're going to break through a very delicate barrier. It is very different. The barrier, and we think of the skin microbiome as a biofilm. It actually lives all the way throughout the deepest layers of the dermis. And the upper layer, what's supposed to be always flaking off, it's very delicate. And so that's partially a part of the problem. The pH of water and the pH of the skin are a little bit off, which is the reason why you can actually minimize the showering 2-3 times a week if you can.
There's a lot of women out there suffering with health issues. I get a lot of DMs, most of my following is female. Now, when it comes to their health, they're always looking, Dr. G, where do I find the best holistic care, the best holistic doctors? And for me, the best place you can find it is Wisdom Health, right? Health can be overwhelming. What do you do, especially when there's so much conflicting information? Now, what you want is to find a doctor who can give you that precise, holistic, one-on-one care that you need. Now, as a doctor myself, I wish I could see everyone one-on-one who listens to the podcast. I obviously can't, but here's the next best thing. When it comes to Wisdom Health, it's a fantastic health company. They focus specifically on women's healthcare, specifically on complex health issues that so many women are suffering with, particularly when conventional medicine ignores important factors like hormone issues and autoimmunity. So the doctors here are going to give you advanced functional tests. This is important. It's not just the yearly blood tests that you're getting conventionally. You're getting the functional ones that are giving you the full aspect of your health, like hormones, vitamins, minerals, inflammation, gut biome tests, and everything else that you need specifically for you. Now, the doctors are completely holistic. I get behind all of them, and the approach is similar to the ones that I use when I was in practice with my clients. So go to wisdommedicine.com today and use the promo code Dr. G, DOCTORG, for $100 off a testing package. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink. It's got everything you need, right? That means a lot of the salt that is going to hydrate you, and none of that sugar stuff that you're finding in so many electrolyte drinks. Now, it contains a science-backed ratio, electrolyte ratio of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. It's got no sugar, no artificial coloring, no gluten, none of those fillers in there that are making a lot of these drinks really, really unhealthy. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs that is perfectly suited for your lifestyle, whatever it is, whatever your diet is, whatever your athleticism is, your performance, doesn't matter. You need electrolytes to stay hydrated. Now, it's super important to replenish electrolytes. Whether you just did the sauna, you just did cardio, you just did a workout, or you just woke up. When it comes to hydration, you need the proper amount of electrolytes because without them, you may be experiencing headaches, muscle cramps, fatigue, sleeplessness, and other common symptoms of electrolyte deficiency. Now, I felt better since using Element. I started off using them in my sauna, and then I moved to using it all throughout the day. It's fantastic. I got my family on it, my brother's on it, my dad's on it. Right now, Element is offering you, the Heal Thyself listener, a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packets free with any Element order. Now, this is a great way to taste all of the flavors to see which ones you like. Get yours at drinkelement.com/DRG. This deal is only available through my link. You must go to drinklmnt.com/DRG. Element offers no questions asked refunds. Try it totally risk-free. And if you don't like it, they get your money back. No questions asked. You got nothing to lose. Try it out.
Listen, I have a whole new plan now when I go home.
I'm so happy.
I got a new life. Okay, so let me in my head think about these things. Shower filter, you had mentioned, could be very powerful. I want to go into those in a minute. Showering less,
Yes.
but maybe like over the sink, cleaning my bits. You know what I mean? Lowering the temperature, even if it's hot. But even if there is hotter temperature, letting it hit your shoulders, not your face, not your scalp.
Right.
And well, am I missing anything? Those are the
basics.
Those are the basics,
Yes.
right? Just
If
reducing
people can
it.
just adhere to those, they're going to see major changes.
Wow. Okay. So when we talk about the chemicals coming out of the shower pipes, do water filters really work, or is that just a scam?
No, it does, especially for chlorine. If the water that we use for showering wasn't already recycled multiple times, then we probably wouldn't need them. But the major one is chlorine, of course.
And what is chlorine in the shower doing, both as water and as steam? Is it affecting us?
Some people actually do in areas of especially the US, where the chlorination is much higher. Some people can actually start having intranasal issues where their asthma actually gets a little bit worse or the rhinitis gets a little bit worse, irritation of the eye as well. So that is the problem with chlorine. Once it gets in the water, it gets heated, it can then become a gas. Also, the reason why when people go into a pool, they can have these kinds of reactions.
You see me every time I come out the shower, I always rubbing my eyes since I was a kid.
Yes, of course.
Scratching my eyes and everything.
course.
But the chlorine in itself, what about when it hits our scalp? Is it disinfecting the microbiome?
Well, we don't really need that. Again, the microbiome, especially the skin microbiome, seems to be very simple, much less complex than that of the gut. And so if you are putting something that is supposed to neutralize microbes in the water, you're going to have this chemical in direct contact with the entire biofilm that is the skin, and you're going to be damaging potentially some of the microbes that we do need on the surface to actually keep it intact.
This is so fascinating to think about because it's so applicable because we all shower.
That's
it's so
exactly
applicable
right.
because we use shampoo and conditioner, right? We all want to smell good and we all take hot showers. The cold part that you said, is that actually helpful for the follicles or does it worsen the follicles?
Well, a lot of the techniques that we use in clinic do induce blood flow by increasing a little bit of temperature. And also that can enhance the penetration of some chemicals, especially if you're using a scalp product. So the hair fiber itself does benefit from cooling water. The scalp itself, again, because of that irritation process and that over drying, while we're thinking of the skin as an organ, we're losing a lot of water directly to it. through it. So when you're raising the temperature, you're actually asking the body to dehydrate even further. Going back to malassation, once you got you have dehydration, malassation is going to start thriving, which is the reason why then people have to put something on to try to replenish the barrier back again.
So for folks who go, okay, I want to optimize my scalp biome. You mentioned the clay shampoos.
Yeah.
Those are just powder-based, clay-based, and you just put it with water and then you just let it sit on the head?
There are already some commercially available products that are used for the face, especially those are formulated for people that have acne. Products like that actually work really, really well. Of course, they have to be diluted a little bit and then placed on the scalp for 5 to 10 minutes. At first, you do, short amounts of time, and then you rinse it off really well.
Okay, and then you can use the beneficial oils, like you
Yes.
said, the jojoba, for example, and that's going to help your hair come to more natural aliveness, like
Yes,
you said.
exactly.
And what's the difference in the quality of the hair if I'm using, Old Spice shampoo and Old Spice conditioner? What happens to the hair? Does it get weaker, thinner, more brittle, less life? What happens over time?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. So if you think of the hair follicle as the root of a tree, right? When you overwater a plant, for example, you can actually make the leaves, right, kind of very weakened. The same thing happens with the hair follicle and hair. We do notice reduction in the thickness of the hair fiber itself, also because the ends of it, right, were born or came out of the scalp so long ago, and hairs are actually multiple fibers that are together. Then you start having split ends, right? So that's what happens with a lot of people. Their ends actually are very difficult to manage. They have to use the products, and then eventually they're not going to help. So when you have all of these chemicals and the heat and everything else, and then the tools that a lot of people use to change the hair fiber itself, you're weakening something that is actually one of the strongest materials on earth, almost as similar as silk. Wow. That's actually the way that I like to think about hair itself. So when you don't damage the fiber itself, it tends to be more resilient.
So something like, how about drying your hair, blow drying your hair, using the ironing of the hair straighteners? What happens to the hair? Is that damaging the hair?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, we find that a lot of women who undergo, for example, keratin, right, the Brazilian strengthening process, because the keratin has to be introduced into the fiber to really make it much more pliable and thinner. That heat tool, when it's applied directly to the scalp, can stunt growth for months, sometimes up to a year. One application, that's more than enough. Is it the chemical that was applied or was it the heat? We don't know. But in the African American community, right, because of this ideal of wanting to have the straightest hair, we see some of the most aggressive forms of hair loss, especially around the face. These hair follicles are, after all, in a very delicate area. You have the skin, which is fully exposed to all the elements. And then you have a very small area with follicles that are always trying to grow. And so when you're applying the chemicals and the heat and everything else, you can lose that 1/2 inch, and that's more than enough to actually start like the desert type of hair loss where people start receding. And once you recede 1 inch, all bets are off.
We talked about the chemical, the mechanical, what's hitting us, sides of hair loss or quality of hair. But off air, we were talking a little bit about the emotional side.
Oh, yeah.
Is there an emotional component to hair loss?
So as a behavioral trichologist, and I've been doing this for almost 10 years, one-on-one with clients, especially women, what I found is that, yes, it is important to treat the physical body. We have an emotional body and an energetic body. And what I found was that with a lot of these women that were having all kinds of skin and scalp issues, including hair loss, they were holding on to emotions many times that were coming from childhood. And so in many cases, part of my consultation to be able to really achieve the results that I was able to achieve, I needed to become a little bit of a psychologist and consultant to them, right? Especially because women, if they were born to a broken family, right, and they don't have the support, and then they have to support their own family, they stop taking care of themselves. Many times they don't have anybody to share their emotions with. They become disconnected of themselves, and They needed somebody to listen to them. Many times they will come to me for a treatment that I do that's called scalp micropigmentation. It's a form of permanent tattooing to camouflage the scalp. And just by going through a very short conversations of exactly what it is that they were feeling, well, they had just gotten divorced or separated. They wanted to start dating again. They didn't feel comfortable with their own image, but in reality, there were many other issues that were buried deep down, and just talking about them was making them feel better about themselves without needing to go through these very expensive, complicated treatments that were really not necessary. And so when we find, for example, you talked about it not long ago, women that have thyroid issues and thyroid-related hair loss, well, they don't speak their truth. They actually don't even know how to find the words to say what they want to say. And so I become an advocate for them, right? I allow them to know that they always have a way of communicating, that if they need to say something, they should say it. So I'm very big on helping women learn about vagal tone, how singing, talking, humming can actually help them be able to release some of these emotions. So that was the first, right? I found a lot of women that were already on thyroid medication and many other things that had never really put two and two together, right? That they had trauma, sexual abuse, they were in abusive households, they had to shut their mouth and swallow their words, and that was partially what's driving a lot of the medical issues that they had. So once they put it, the two and two together, they were like, this is really amazing. I feel better now. And guess what? The hair responds to that because it is connected to the rest of the organs. So that's for people that have thyroid issues. The other one is in Chinese medicine, we understand that there are two important organs, right, for detoxification and then production and storage of many other things, the liver and the gallbladder. So the main symptom that we have for people that have a gallbladder dysfunction is the inability to digest fats. So the first thing that most people will do is they're going to stop some of the foods that have this high fat intake, but the gallbladder can actually be storing bile, their liver can be producing it. They can still be excreting it as necessary, but because they're holding on to resentment, that's actually the emotion that is held in the gallbladder. If we don't treat the emotional resentment, then the gallbladder can't function as well as it should. And that's basically my experience, that when we start treating the emotion itself and for the person to find the root cause of where the resentment comes in, then they can start digesting fats and having a bowel movement every single day. This happens a lot with women, especially, where they start having this chronic constipation that can go for 2-3 days. And that's basically what can drive it. Anger is the other emotion, which is normally held in the liver. And so if your liver is not functioning properly, all the functions that the liver does, right? So trying to tap and trying to understand the root cause of the emotion that is causing some of these issues can take a little bit of time. That's the reason why I do recommend for people to always look for a holistic practitioner as much as possible, especially if they have traumatic experiences in the past. That can help a lot.
Yeah, I love, this is true holistic approach, right? We talk about that physical body, the emotional body and connecting. And how many of us go, yeah, actually that really makes sense, right? It really makes sense, the digestion, right? The resentment, the anger that we hold in our belly. And how it's connected in the way that I probably never even heard up till now.
Yes.
Hair and all of this as a big picture, right? Because we need all of that. So when we think about the emotional body, people can allow themselves to speak, right? Working on that, like working with you, opening that space. But you mentioned about the soul body. How do we start? The third part, is there a soul connection that we need to be in line with? Maybe purpose, maybe just with present moment, maybe with that. And is that stress of not having that affecting our hair too?
Absolutely. Again, so the fact that the majority of people live in urban settings and there is a separation from nature, that we don't understand that we come from the earth. We are the earth, right? Whether or not you believe in God or something else, reconnecting with nature is the most important thing. Allowing a little bit of time and space every single day to look up to the sky, to connect with the birds, with the trees, with the soil. And so we have all these techniques now that we can use. I have helped so many women just by teaching them what grounding is. And that can actually help things immediately. And it's amazing because hair actually, for some reason, starts to actually lift a little bit and it gives more volume right away. So I have people who do grounding every single day. So people will buy, the mats and the other things that they need. And especially if they work in front of computers, where they're getting in contact with all these EMFs that are so damaging, walking away from that, putting the phone down, leaving it in another place, all those things can really help a lot. It's about being connected and just being in tune with what we're supposed to be.
And I think about you saying grounding and the hair standing up. It's like our antennas get activated, right? It's like, right? Like, here we go. We're back to earth. Yeah. So getting back to, and that feeds our soul, because we remember that we are not separate from nature. It's our spirit that is like, wow, that's the spirit of the tree. Wait a minute. I am the tree.
You are the tree. Is me,
right?
That's exactly right.
So it's beautiful things to think about. I want to put the tail end of this on what foods can we eat for hair? What internal? We talked about the external, right, on the superficial. What type of things do we need to be bringing, you mentioned fats, into our diet to have really luscious, beautiful, and by the way, for people viewing or listening, you got luscious hair.
And this is not even as dense as it could be, actually.
Okay, yeah. So everyone listening and not on the visual, she's got some luscious hair.
Thank you.
What do we need to be eating? What do we need to incorporate? Because some of us are carnivore, some of us don't eat meat, and everything in between. What are some staples that we need to be having?
So, again, going back to the basics, it has to be balanced, whether you're consuming animal products or not. The balance, what we find for people who want to grow hair and do grow hair very healthy, it's about 40% carbohydrates, whatever source it is that you're looking for. Then you need to have about 30% coming from protein, whether it's vegan or animal, that's perfectly fine. And then you need to have those fatty acids. So we go back to the staples, nuts and seeds. That's also going to give fiber, which is the other thing that most people are actually missing in their diets. I find eggs, if you are pescatarian and you can introduce eggs into your diet, is actually one of the first things that people remove from their diet, either because they're too busy or they don't have the time to cook. And so adding 2 to 3 eggs a day can actually help a lot. I eat personally nose to tail. I grew up in Colombia, and that's actually how I was raised. So for me, I choose liver at least once a week. I know this is super weird. Instead of taking supplementation, if you can just go back to those things that we have always used, it can help a lot. When it comes to carbohydrates, we're not talking just about your rice, beans, and potatoes, for example. We're also talking about the fruits and vegetables, right? So when I go through the log of foods that people who are losing hair actually write out, their diet is extremely very narrow. Yeah. Okay, it just needs to be a little bit more diverse, basically. As long as there's no gastrointestinal issues going on, the whole point is to always be trying something new. And again, going back to nature, anything that grows out of the ground or in a tree should be a staple in your diet. And that should be about that 50% of the carbohydrates that we need to be consuming.
So really easy, right? Because
it's easy.
Because we can have access. I mean, people know that beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, and then the fiber, the colors of the rainbow, whether you're vegan or you're carnivore, anything in between, you can have those sources of plant-based protein or animal-based protein.
Yes, exactly.
But what I'm hearing is just more awareness of what you're eating and more diversity, exactly. Expanding it. Because a lot of people get very comfortable and they go, this is my diet
Yes,
here.
Exactly. 5 or 6 things and they eat it every single day. Right.
And what that's doing is causing a depletion in those nutrients that feed the hair follicle. Yes. I love that. I love it. Okay, so is there anything else that we should keep? I had a question that how about this? Somebody had said I should, with a brush, like a plastic brush, stimulate my scalp every day in the shower. Should I be doing that, or are my fingers good enough when I shampoo?
Well, so I gotta tell you, if you are treating the scalp correctly, you should be anyway. Touching ourselves is part of that connection, right? So when you're applying a product directly on the scalp, as a scalp treatment, for example, just the massaging motion is enough We don't really need to be putting a brush per se. There are some that are a little bit better. Now, this is a trend. I think it came out like 3 or 4 years ago, with companies always wanting to introduce a new product. I find that the plastic ones or silicone that come with a little tip, when you look with the microscope, you actually see scratches directly into the scalp. Why? Because most people don't even know how much pressure to put in. I don't find them to be really necessary. There's other scalp scratches, for example, that come with like little tiny steel tips. Those actually, like people use it to soothe and massage. That actually is a lot more beneficial than the ones that are made out of silicone and plastic.
Right.
And again, if you are going to use them, you already have it. Some people do see some benefits because, again, they stopped touching themselves a long time ago and they start treating the scalp correctly. So just by using it very softly, you don't need to put a lot of pressure. You also don't need to be scrubbing like it's, a car or a dirty,
Right.
surface. Just doing very softly and not putting a lot of pressure can help a little bit. But I find that the fingers themselves, just because we're connecting with ourselves.
Yeah.
And if you have a partner, right, somebody, for example, that's losing hair in the back of the head, it's a little more difficult to apply a product. Well, have somebody in your family, even a child, right, touch you in that area.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. I'm starting to get a big picture now.
Nice.
All I know is my water bill is going to go down. That's what we know. My shampoo purchases are going to go down. I might be smelling like a natural caveman.
You're gonna smell like a baby.
But like a baby, okay?
Yes,
And I'm
milky
gonna be,
and sweet.
But that's all my scents, my natural scents are gonna be flowing, my aromatics in the air. So
Well, if you're into essential oils,
I love essential oils.
There's a reason why they exist, and in fact, it's not just because of the effect directly on the scalp. But guess what? Hair follicles actually are connected to the olfactory system, so that might be one of the reasons why essential oils can be so beneficial. Not just because when they come in contact with the skin, but the fact that when you bring them close to your nose, they're activating the rest of the senses.
I feel that.
It's absolutely.
I feel
There's
it
a
throughout my
reason why
body.
they've been with us for thousands of years.
I'm gonna widen my diet. I'm gonna eat more protein even.
Okay.
And listen, when you see me in 6 months, I might have like a Beauty and the Beast mane.
Oh yeah.
Right, just flowing like the Lion King, and come out
Down to your chest, that would be nice.
come out the Florida water, right? Like Fabio. That's how I'm gonna
You'll be the
looking.
Spanish Fabio,
The
yes.
Spanish Fabio. I gotta tell you, I really appreciate your knowledge, and I appreciate
you.
how you share it and how you deliver it, and the heart you have behind it. Because I see that you not just want to do it for the physical, but you want to do it from the emotional standpoint, the soul standpoint, and really, essentially, bringing people back to nature, which is
That's
everything.
exactly right, especially the young generations. They need a lot more guidance. We
Big
need to go
time.
back to how things were.
How do people find you?
I'm in all social media, of course. I am Dr. Andrea Echeverry. And I do have a company with a website. It's Hair Pigment Center, so they can also find me that way. And I'm very responsive to direct messaging, so please don't be afraid to contact me that way.
Yeah, and you put up some good stories. You got some good highlights. You got some good videos. It's if you need hair help, go there.
Thank you.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining, Doc, and all the
you.
love.
Same to you.
If you eat fish, if you eat sushi, if you eat sashimi, nigiri, lox, carpaccio, you must listen to this episode. Okay, today is the day I finally talk about raw fish, sushi, sashimi. About a year ago, I did a set of stories around sushi and parasites, and it blew up. Thousands and thousands of people were sending them to their loved ones, and hundreds of the DMs I was getting. It was really something. And I realized how many people love eating raw fish, sushi, sashimi, whatever you're doing. So finally, the show is here. Now today, I'm gonna be talking about parasites and raw fish. If you eat or have eaten raw fish of any kind, this show's for you. I'm gonna go into how eating raw fish has boomed in the United States. What is a parasite? Where are they found? How do they affect our health? How common are these infections? Then we're gonna go into an interesting study that found that marine parasites have been increasing. Now, how is a parasite transmitted before it gets on our plate? Very important to know. And more importantly, what are the signs and symptoms of this infection? And lastly, what to look for to protect yourself if you're consuming raw fish. So raw fish consumption popularity has boomed in the United States. The sushi restaurant sector has blown up. Now, more and more, many of us are into taking the experience of this Japanese tradition, right? And naturally, as the demand rises, so too does the risks of improper handling of the fish. And ultimately, infections from parasites. So the market size for sushi restaurant sector has blown up. Back in 2012, here in the United States, the sector was $17 billion. Now it's up to $24 billion. And we love raw fish. Sushi was my favorite in college. It was my date go-to, my friends go out to dinner go-to, my solo order in go-to. It was the thing. So when it comes to parasites, we need to be aware of how they affect us. Now, parasites are organisms that they live in the host. That's no surprise. And they utilize their host nutrients for life, right? And this can cause a multitude of diseases in humans. Now, it can be passed on in many different ways. Bug bites, waste, soil, and for the purposes of this episode, water and food. The latter two being the most common. Now, infection usually begins in the gut when these buggers can move all throughout our system and get into our tissues after. So even the capacity for these parasites through evolution has grown to even evade our immune system. And they lay eggs within us, and it can stay in our system for weeks up to years and years and years. So how common are these infections? In developing countries, about 30 to 60% of people are infected with parasites. Now, when it comes to the United States, it's harder to find that exact number. I was looking everywhere. We don't have an exact number on how many of us in the United States are infected with parasites. I'm assuming it would be less, but I could be wrong. So there was a study that showed the parasitic infection in fish has been increasing. Now, there was a meta-analysis out of the University of Washington called It's a Wormy World, and it was published in Global Change Biology Journal. And they analyzed 123 papers published between 1967 and 2017 to track down the long-term changes in the abundance of specific aquatic parasites. One particular parasite called Anisakis, aka herringworm, is a nematode that causes anisakeiasis, which creates a multitude of gastrointestinal issues, similar to food poisoning. Now, the study found a 283-fold increase from the years of 1978 to 2015 in this parasite's abundance in water. It's incredible, right? The parasitic infection was primarily found in Japan, but since the boom in sushi has came to the United States and South America, we also find it here. So why has there been a flourishing of these parasites in the water? Well, the authors aren't sure. But some of the theories are climate change, the warming of the waters, fertilizer and runoff, and just increase in mammals, right? The more mammals, the more feces, the more parasitic life cycles are perpetuated. So how's it transmitted? Dr. Nancy Craig has written a nice write-up about parasites and fish in the Canadian Physician Journal. Basically, the embryos of these parasites are eaten by small little crustaceans called copepods. And as they develop within these crustaceans, they're eaten by fish. Then the parasite moves into the muscle fibers of the fish. The parasite is then passed on to the animal or human when the fish is eaten raw. So the Anisakis nematode stays in the intestine for just a small amount of time, and they grow to about 2 centimeters in length. But then there's the other common worm that is found in fish, and it's a tapeworm. So what are the signs and symptoms of a parasitic infection from raw fish? Well, they can be mild symptoms like just fatigue, some constipation, some abdominal discomfort, or it can get more severe like food poisoning. Now, the labs may look normal. You may see low B12 or pernicious anemia. And this is because the worm, when it's in the upper intestine, is eating up all of your vitamin B12 to survive. So your red blood cells are going to suffer as a result. So this brings on the question, how do we protect ourselves? What about preparation? All fish are subject to parasitic infection. Of course, there's a higher risk when you're consuming raw fish, but there's also a risk if you're cooking fish. You want to make sure you're cooking it thoroughly and fully through. Now, salmon is one of the most commonly infected fish. So you got to make sure you're cooking it at 55 degrees Celsius or 131 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 minutes, and that'll kill the larva. For raw fish, sushi, sashimi, it's very important, whoever you get the sushi from, that they need to be handling it properly. You got to make sure that this fish is frozen at negative 20 degrees Celsius or negative 68 degrees Fahrenheit for 7 days, or they're flash freezing at negative 35 degrees Celsius or negative 95 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 hours. The caveat is the flesh must be less than 15 centimeters thick. Now, this is standard for public health, but you never know if sushi restaurants are fully following, right? So I suggest making sure, talking to the people there, especially if you're enjoying having sushi at this place and going to go there more than once. I also suggest cutting your sushi before you eat it and take a little look. See if you see a little wormy guy moving around. For treatment, there's also anti-parasitic medications out there. If you go back to the parasite show that I had, I go over all of the natural treatments for parasites too. So I'm not trying to scare you from eating raw fish. Are you likely to get infected with a parasite from eating raw fish? No, you're less likely, but there's always a chance, especially if the sushi is handled poorly or the raw fish is handled poorly. So I wanted to bring awareness to you that a parasitic infection is a risk, especially if you're consuming the raw fish, and for you to know that not all raw fish is created equal. This is how you have to make sure who you're getting it from and how they're handling it. So that is all you need to know about fish, raw fish, sushi, parasites, what you need to do, what you need to ask, find out, make sure if you're eating raw fish, you do these things to protect yourself, protect your gut, and protect your overall health.